You're listening to The Pump Fake.
And welcome into the Pump Fake, everybody. Jarrett Bailey here with you as always, joined by Lindsay Rhodes of Sumer Sports, making her Pump Fake debut. Lindsay Rhodes.
Hello.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I am. Why is there not a football game tonight? It's Thursday. It's preseason. I'm very surprised that we're not, like, you couldn't give me Trey Lance's third. Do the Rams and Chargers play each other this preseason? I could watch a Trey Lance Stetson Bennett invitational tonight.
100%. Yeah, Trey looked good. Yeah, I'm liking the depth for the Chargers. That's been my preseason takeaway with regards to that team, and that's largely linked to Trey Lance, but also the defense. And so, like, looking out to the future, you know, do they have the pieces to, like, put them over the hump this year? I don't know, but it feels like they're building in the right direction.
The Rams are such a weird team to me too, sticking in Los Angeles, just because, like, they were my pick to come out of the NFC this year, and then, like, Stafford's still not practicing, and then you have words like a mortal chamber being thrown around. Like, all right, actually, I'm gonna look elsewhere in the NFC to maybe have my Super Bowl pick, because anytime we're talking about immortal chambers in August, I'm probably out.
That's not good. Yeah, and I totally get, like, the whole, like, on the one hand, the whole conversation about, like, okay, if there was a game today, like, let's slow our roll here. If there was a game today, like, he'd be playing. Like, that still doesn't make me feel less worried, right? Like, that we have yet to start the season and we're having the types of conversations that we're having about him. I think that there's some there with regards to that.
Especially when the game that they're going to be playing in a few weeks is against Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson and a really good defense who can get after it. So there's a lot of, like, I'm kind of freaked out about the Rams right now.
Back?
Stafford.
Like,
back for a 37-year-old guy. Like, come on now. Like, I have my worries. Let's get into a few other. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm not as worried, though, about the team. Like, yes, obviously Matthew Stafford makes them the best version of themselves, and if we're going to make a Super Bowl prediction or something like that, like Matthew Stafford, I would like him to be on the field for all of those games, but I don't necessarily think that they just plummet, you know,
I don't think
Jimmy
so
Garoppolo
either.
is the backup. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has at least proven that in a good environment, that was the whole thing with him in San Francisco, was that people were like, and then translated into, like, Purdy, they were like, yeah, but Jimmy Garoppolo was even good here, right? Like, well, if he was good there, then don't you think he could be good with Sean McVay and the Rams, who remember a couple of years ago when they took Baker Mayfield off the street, put him onto the field for an actual NFL game after practicing with them for, like, one day, and he looked good? Like, this is exactly the environment that you want to put a Jimmy Garoppolo in to maximize what he does have. And we keep hearing, like, when the whole Stafford thing was happening, it was around Combine when they were negotiating his contract, and it sort of blew up. We talked to on the Sumer Sports Show, Jordan Rodriguez, and she was saying straight face, not like, she's like, I actually believe them when they say this, that they like Jimmy Garoppolo. They're not trying to get away from Jimmy Garoppolo. If he's the next best option, and strategically it made sense at the time, right? They're negotiating a deal with Stafford to be like, we kind of like him. We don't have to pay you.
Yeah.
But her feeling was that they actually believed that. And so I can kind of connect the dots and make it make sense in my head that they actually might believe that they'd be okay with him. So, like, from a fantasy standpoint, people are freaking out about, like, Puka or Devontae. That's not how it clicks in my head. I think it's still probably fine.
Yeah, and obviously Jordan's terrific at her job over the Athletic and whatnot. Either way, when a team's gassing up their backup that way, that also worries me a lot too. Where, like, actually Jimmy Garoppolo, look at him slinging out there at training camp. I'm like, oh no, this is not good. I have my old backs when it comes to them. We'll get into some news here actually as well. We'll start off in Kansas City, where Rashee Rice's disciplinary hearing set for September 30th. Lindsay, I'm not one of the tinfoil hat wearing folks on Twitter who are like, every time something happens, especially in a close game or anything like that, and a call goes the Chiefs' way, I'm not, throwing my drink down, pointing at the TV and saying, oh, another rigged game for the Chiefs. However, when something like this happens, it gives those people another thing to point at, and it gives them some sort of credence to be like, oh, there's another one. And when we've already had discipline handed down to Jordan Addison, I don't understand why we have to wait until after a relatively difficult 4-game stretch for the Chiefs to decide that we can properly punish Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I mean, all of those points are valid. I don't know the, story behind it enough, I think, to weigh
Yeah.
on whether or not this is what you're alluding to here, without a tinfoil hat, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the way that that looks bad. Um, from a what does this mean for him staying on the field? Because you could look at this the other way around and say, well, like, I'd actually rather know now and maybe start the season without him
Mhm.
than have a meeting on September 30th and then go, okay, like right in the middle of the season, we're going to take potentially your best offensive weapon off the field, right? Like, I mean, outside of Patrick, clearly, like pass weapon. So there are negatives there too, in that it just leaves it lingering. And so maybe there's this sense of like, we have to come up with a plan B at all times, as opposed to start with the plan B and then go, okay, we're getting him back. And then we're going to be able to rev up towards the postseason. So there's some negatives to this as well. 'Cause if
Right.
you drop a suspension on him late in the season, they're screwed, So you could look at this either way, I suppose. I think
Yeah.
it's probably, I think I would argue that unless the thought process becomes, okay, well, this is unfair to the Chiefs to spring this on them without much notice late in the season, and so we're just going to push this out to next year. Unless it becomes that, you could argue that this puts the Chiefs in as much of a bind as it would, or more so than to just say, okay, first 4 you're out, or whatever it is, now.
Yeah, all of it's just really weird because it happened last offseason, didn't it? Like it's been a while since all this happened, and having to wait until all of it.
You got a lot of disciplinary to get through, Jarrett.
Yes,
They're busy.
yeah.
They're busy people at 3:45.
They're busy dealing with John Gruden's court case apparently, or whatever the hell else is going on in the NFL offices. Let's move on to something else in terms of the AFC. James Cook, after a months-long standoff with the Bills, gets a 4-year deal with $48 million, $30 million guaranteed. I did a piece on this yesterday for Sporting News, just breaking down his value, and more so because some Bills fans, at least I think, look at the number and be like, that feels a little bit steep and whatnot. But in terms of Sumer Sports data, when you look at how the Bills offense still played on downs in which the run was expected, they were still one of the best teams in terms of EPA. Both in the pass and in the run. So even when teams were stacking the box and gearing up for 4 to get the ball, it didn't matter. He was one of the best backs in terms of explosive touchdown runs as well. DYAR, DBOA, like he was absolutely in the conversation for one of the best backs in the NFL. Makes sense for both sides to get it done. And James Cook being with the Bills, keeps their Super Bowl odds at as high as they can go. If he wasn't there, I think that they would have gone down drastically.
Do you think so though? Because that's kind of where I look at it, like in terms of wins against replacement. And there are a ton of different layers to this that we can get into, just about running backs in general and what the complicating nature is, like what the argument is here for potentially not paying him. But wins against replacement, if they didn't have him and they were like, okay, we have Ray Davis and we have Ty Johnson, would it actually change the Vegas win total?
That is a fair point to bring up, because you can make the argument that Buffalo has the most complete running back room in the league, especially like Ty Johnson, maybe the best, no exaggeration, maybe the best receiving back in football. You look at his numbers last year, like every time he touched the ball, something big happened. So I totally get that point. I do think, though, when you have a Pro Bowl running back in an offense that doesn't have any sort of elite pass catcher, and he's become kind of the nucleus that the offense runs through, both in the run and the pass, having a guy like that certainly does take a little bit of the pressure off Josh, who doesn't necessarily have to feel like he has to do everything. And there were games last year where James Cook like legit took over. It's week 2 against the Dolphins on Thursday night. He had 3 scores. The game against San Francisco, he had a long touchdown run. Even go back a couple years against Dallas when he had over 200 yards on the ground. They only had Josh throw the ball 15 times. Like, he's proven to be like a guy that you can make a bell cow. They've obviously spread out the workload because they have such a talented trio. But I do completely understand the point of like, okay, but Ray Davis and Ty Johnson are there too. How much would that affect them? I think in a big game against Kansas City, you feel much better having Cook there rather than not having him though.
The thing with running backs that makes it so hard, and I think that this is just a fascinating, like one of the most fascinating conversations that's happening right now in the NFL, for a number of different reasons. They're so hard to evaluate. They're so hard to attach value to because they're so hard to evaluate, because James Cook's a perfect example. He's been on a good offense his entire NFL career. So the fact that he has had success is hard to separate.
Yeah.
How much of that is because he is so good, or how much of it has to do with the fact that he's in the same backfield as Josh Allen? How much of it has to do with him running behind a specific offensive line? How much of it has to do with like there is literally no way to separate any of these things from one another. And so you just don't know how to stack him up or what the team would be like without him. Right. And then you look at some stats within the team and understand that you go, okay, like, one guy might be a third down back, one guy might be a goal line back. Like, some of the efficiency stats get messed up just based on usage. But like, Ty Johnson's efficiency numbers are pretty similar to not Ray Davis's, to James Cook's. So you're kind of like, I mean, is he the reason, or are they the reason that he looks good? And it's very hard to find the answer to that. So, I mean, like, I am one of the people that still says that Saquon's performance last year, and Derrick Henry's to a degree, actually made the opposite of the argument that most people said that they made last year. Most people were like, obviously running backs still matter and you should pay running backs, and Saquon is exhibit A. My argument is, no, he literally played out exactly the argument that people have been making about why you don't pay running backs, except for in specific situations. Because that guy who was so good on the Eagles was 1 year older than he was with the Giants, and all of his numbers took off. Why did they take off? Do you think he got better last year? No, he was on a good team with a good offensive line in a good environmental system. Yeah. Those are the teams that pay running backs, which you could make the argument like that's the Bills, right? So, but you can't maximize a running back unless you actually have a good offense. Saquon, exhibit A, didn't move the needle in terms of wins for the Giants, even when he was that good, right?
Yes,
So
I wrote about that a couple of years ago where people were like, oh man, those running backs aren't getting paid. Well, you have teams that are bad like the Giants and the Chargers who drafted Austin Eckler and the Raiders who drafted Josh Jacobs, where they're good and we know that, but these teams and their thought process of going around team building, it's not, the early 90s when Barry Sanders could single-handedly drag the Lions to a playoff spot. This is not the league anymore. And so we've saw, not just in Saquon's case, we've mentioned Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs leaves Vegas and goes to Green Bay and has a great year. So I do like that point in terms of just like, it is still a passing league. And it shouldn't annoy me, but it really does. Every time, like, I see David Montgomery have like an 8-yard game that goes for a touchdown, people are like, yeah, I run the damn ball. I'm like, well, no, like, in the biggest games of the year, you need a guy who can throw the damn ball and get you plays like that. So,
and if you don't have a guy who can throw the damn ball, David Montgomery's not running for an 8-yard gain. Like, and we have so many examples of that. You just gave the Josh Jacobs one. Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas, literally there wasn't a single stat that you could point to, not one, his last year in Las Vegas, that said he's still good, don't worry. Not one. So that tells you something about running back environments, because then he goes to Green Bay, he's in a better environment, and now all of a sudden his numbers come up. So he didn't get better. There's just no way for him to move the needle, or for us to assess how much he can move the needle when he's on a bad offense. So my thought process with running backs in general is, especially if they are like a really good running back, if you want to maximize that, and the name of the game is maximizing every roster move that you make, is to build a good offense, build a good offensive line, have the right quarterback, but more importantly, have a good offensive line and then build everything out so that you can move the ball, then plug that stud running back in. And now you're maximizing him. Otherwise, you're just sort of banging your head against a wall, right? Like,
yeah, running backs are very much better used as the cherry on top of the cake rather than the cake.
Very much so.
We've seen, Christian McCaffrey is kind of the patient zero of that, where the 49ers were already great. And they're like, yeah, let's go get Christian McCaffrey and really see how great we can be. So yeah, I do agree with that very much wholeheartedly. And I love that discussion that came from it. All right, let's play our little game. Me and Lindsay are going to go back and forth in terms of would you rathers, or, pick this quarterback, things of that nature. What you do on August 14th, but like games are happening, but like we're still not in the regular season yet. So we can't really talk about real football. We're busy talking about Skylar Thompson and Cam Little kicking 70-yard field goals, whether or not the record's count or not. So we'll do a little bit of give and take. And I will start off with this, not that one, this one. Would you rather, which New York quarterback will have more wins this year? Will it be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields?
I literally have that written down as my first would you rather question to you. So it's a good thing I came with some extras.
There we go.
Literally, I thought that was funny. And I know that you're a Steelers fan, and I think it's a good would you rather.
Well.
And so I think that this is a good one.
Yes.
To win more games.
I'll tell you where I'm going. I'm going with Justin Fields. Okay. For a few reasons. Okay. I think it's weird to say, the infrastructure with the Jets right now feels a little bit more stable than that with the Giants. Like, there's a lot of newness to the Jets where, Aaron Glenn knows he's not going to get fired after this year unless things go horribly wrong. A new offense where I think they're going to let Justin Fields be Justin Fields more so than the Steelers did last year. It felt like they were kind of putting training wheels on him and not letting him do what he does best, which is run. I did a superlatives piece, and I said that Justin Fields is the most likely to have like a 70-yard touchdown run and have somebody give him another starting job at some point. And that's what he does. And at this point, we know that's what he does. We know he's going to be the guy this year. They don't really have anybody behind him where you're looking at and saying, yes, Jordan Davis, Florida State, get in there. With the Giants, like if the Giants start off 1-5, it's Jackson Dart time. So I think that Fields is going to be in there so long as he's healthy. He'll have more opportunities to win more games. And I think at this point, I would probably take him over Russ anyway, just because he does give you a little bit more with his legs. And I think we saw whatever Russ had left last year came out and then kind of bottomed out. So I would take Justin Fields in this situation.
Making it about wins is the complicating nature of this question for me.
Not necessarily who plays better.
Like, who would you rather if you were to pick one of these quarterbacks to quarterback your team? In which case, I absolutely am going for Justin Fields.
Okay.
I think in that case, you're looking at a quarterback who I think has yet to maximize his abilities, right? Like the Bears, in year one of him being the quarterback at the end of the year, all of a sudden kind of leaned into the design quarterback runs.
When
and you're like,
guys, thrown in there because the fans bullied Matt Nagy so much. And he was basically like, all right, here, damn. Sorry.
But even then in the beginning, they like start with like they're like, hey, stand in that pocket and rip it. And you're like,
where he just got hit a million times.
What are we doing? And then they're finally like, okay, fuck it. This isn't working. Like, just run. And then they're scoring 30 points a game. And it's just like, yes, we figured it out. Okay, next year. And then at the beginning of the next year, I'm like, yeah, they're going to do it. Like, they figured it out at the end of the year and they come back out and they're like, we're going to try this again. Stand in the pocket. And you're just like, what are we doing here? Like, let him be him.
Yeah.
Or design an offense around his strengths, right? So then he goes to Pittsburgh, and I understand in some ways the desire to pivot to Russell Wilson, and that started off all well and good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, from an efficiency standpoint, Justin had better numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like a lot of the throwing metrics are a lot closer than you would think. Like just looking at like completion percentage, he had Russell by 2 percentage points. Like, again, it's not a stark difference, but if you're looking at completion percentage over expected, Justin Fields is positive 1.5, Russell's 1.7. So again, we're very, very close there.
Yeah.
And the point being there is that those are passing related stats. And then you have the addition of Justin, what he can do on the ground. So to me, at the end of the year, looking back, I'm like, I think Justin kind of won out in terms of that argument. What was probably the smartest strategy if the Steelers had just stuck with him for the duration and let it evolve. Russell didn't have enough of an edge in the areas in which we thought he had an edge to make the decision make sense in retrospect. So I like the Giants defense, though. I will say that.
Me too.
And so that's the only thing here is if we're talking about wins, I think that the Giants defense is going to kind of sneakily keep these games close, and that, Russell throwing to Malik is certainly beneficial. I think I might still go with like the uncertainty at this time of year. I think we all kind of like the
Right.
upside picks.
Mhm.
And so there are a lot of unknowns that I would attach to the Jets right now. And I agree with the first point that you made, which is they went out and got Justin. And then they did not look at quarterbacks in the draft. They were like, I believe based on the moves that they made that they're committed to making this work. And I think that's the best thing that gives me hope that we're going to see the best version of Justin Fields, is that they're not like, okay, fine, we couldn't find anyone else, you go on the field. Like, they're going to design an offense around his strengths. And oh my God, I just want to see what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
So, and certainly he has some very high-end people to work with.
He's very much the Heath Ledger to my Jake Gyllenhaal, and I cannot quit him. I really, really want him to succeed. I was very happy with the Steelers when I got him last year. Obviously, after 6 games, they kind of pulled the plug. But yeah, he's the guy where I don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback, but I think he can be a suitable starter, and I would like to see that happen this year. All right, since I took your first one, what's another one that you had?
Okay. This is more like conceptual as opposed to we're going to get into, and this one may or may not be also rooted in your Steelers fandom.
No, okay.
But will apply to everyone. Would you rather win a Super Bowl and not go to the playoffs for a decade?
Oh.
Or be in it every year, but never win it?
That's God. Okay. If you could tell me right now that the Steelers would win one this year, that'd be pretty poetic for Aaron to just win one and say, all right, great job by us. I'm going to go chill in Malibu forever. But then they don't get back for a decade.
I'm going to tell you, that's not going to happen. But okay.
Oh, no, I don't think it's going to either.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I'll look at it from my Josh Allen. I'll put on my Josh Allen cap because obviously, in terms of NFL media folks, I'm very much a loud fan of Josh. So, if you could tell me, all right, he'll win one this year, but never get back, and not even playoffs for 10 years, or he'll always be in it for 10. That's hard.
Yeah.
I would probably pick the Super Bowl, though, just because, all right, he's got one. And even from, the Steelers' point of view, yes, I would absolutely take a Super Bowl right now. And then, but 10 years of purgatory. Yeah, I mean, you root for your team to win. So I think at the end of the day, that's what would win out, rather than be I think would you rather be the mid-2010s Broncos or the current 49ers, right? Where it's okay, they won late and then they have stunk ever since. Or you want to be, all right, you're going to maybe get to a couple Super Bowls, but you're not going to win one. So it's a hard trade-off, but you root for your team to win. So I'd take the win.
I'm going to go the other direction.
Okay.
And here's why. I think ultimately the thing that should be every team's goal, and I know that they say the goal is to win the Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of franchise health, in terms of all of the things, what you actually want is to give your fan base a reason to believe that you could win the Super Bowl every year. That's what's healthy, right? That means that because there's some volatility that goes with whether or not you can make a run in the postseason. That's why we talk about, if you get into the dance, I don't know, it's all up for grabs. You just need a couple of wins. You could get lucky any given Sunday. I think there's something to the health of a franchise that point, if you're actually in it every year, then that says that you're doing something right. And then the fans have a reason to feel strongly every year. They go to the games. They know they're going to be in the games. There's some reason for them to talk trash to their friends and to wear their starter jackets with pride and all that kind of stuff. I think that's more important for the franchise. And ultimately, if you really dug deep into the fan, yeah, you want to win the Super Bowl. You ultimately want that to pay off. But the experience of sitting down with your friends or your family every Sunday and having that sense of pride about your team, I think that is the real value in sports. And so I would go with the in it every single time I know that we're in this mix, we're one of the strongest teams in the league. I think the value ultimately is there for me.
You might have swayed me in that because I made the Broncos comparison. There was a lot of Case Keenum and Joe Flacco's and Teddy Bridgewater's in there, where Trevor Siemian's and Paxton Lynch's. I wouldn't want to sit down every week knowing, all right, this is going to be a hard
Right.
watch. So
Yeah.
that's completely valid.
Because you get also in terms of just from a franchise standpoint or even a fan standpoint, you're like, you go a couple of years where you have no chance, and then you make other plans on Sundays.
I'm a spoiled fan, and I know that because I grew up rooting for a good team. The
Yep.
second Kenny Pickett was drafted, I wanted to bathe with a toaster. I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? And, I watched it for 2 years, and I told every week, everybody that would listen, hey, he's not good. And then, of course, all the Pitt fans that are also Steelers fans, like, actually, if you look at his win-loss record, like, shut up. It's not good. So, yeah, I acknowledge I was a very spoiled fan. I still am. 2 years of that took years off my life. So I don't know. I don't know if I can handle 10. So I think you swayed me. That was a very good point. All right. So many Steelers ones. I'm going to skip a few actually, because we talk so much Steelers. Let's do this one. Would you rather take the 49ers to win the NFC West or the field? So Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, or would you have to put all your eggs in the 49ers basket?
Oh, that's a good one because the division is so wild right now. I
Yeah,
was
very
just going
much.
back and forth with the former GM last night about this with regards to the Rams, and he was articulating all of the uncertainty in the division. And I think that all of those are really good points. I'm going to go field
Okay.
though. But
Who do you have the most confidence in outside of San Francisco?
outside of San Francisco, the Rams.
Okay.
The Rams. It's I feel like so let's see. Rams,
The Cardinals won 8 games
Seahawks,
last year, but they
Cardinals. Yeah.
lost like 5 in a row down the stretch. Defensively, I think they should be better, but both of their top picks are hurt. So that doesn't give me a lot of like good feeling about them. And like Kyler Murray will look awesome for like 3 weeks, bad for 2, and then just kind of flip flop. And it's just too much inconsistency there for me to like fully buy into them. I'm not a believer in Seattle. I don't know what their plan was this offseason. Personally, where are you following them? Because there's going to be another one in here about them. Well, I actually say we'll talk about them in a minute.
So I work with a guy who's like a full, like deep in the scheme, X's and O's, Sean Syed, who does tape breakdowns that he puts out on social media that are very good, by the way. If you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, I
Shout out to
highly
Sean.
suggest you go follow him. He's like really good at breaking down tape. And he broke down one after week 1 of the preseason, highlighting some of the Seahawks defensive stuff, and made the statement on our podcast that they could be the best defense in the NFL this year.
Defensively, I think they're going to be good. Offensively, I think they could be a tire fire.
Yeah, there's so much unknown, which actually, from a fantasy standpoint, which I know a lot of us are kind of looking at like what to do in our fantasy drafts right now. There's a lot of like dartboard throws in the later rounds for me that are Seahawks related. Like,
it's like, all right, what the hell? Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you'll do something.
Not him, no. Not him, Jarrett.
You don't think that he'll be a fun Click Kubiak toy?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But like I'm more interested in Torrey Horton, their draft pick, and whether or not he actually is a good wide receiver, considering the fact that they have so much target opportunity that seems to have opened up.
Had a touchdown against the Raiders in week 1. So I mean he's been a Cam Darwin.
I think Torrey is an interesting one. I think like Elijah Arroyo as a tight end that they just drafted is a guy that we're hearing buzz out of camp that like they're lining him up at X. They're lining him up in the slot. They're lining him up inline. He's going like long. He's like the versatility attached to it. That type of a tight end, I think is interesting in an offense again with the targets that are open up for grabs. So I think like if a couple of those guys hit, then maybe we're having a different conversation about the Seahawks, but you just don't know at this time of year if any of the young guys will. Cooper Kupp, I think, is a guy who's like declining, but isn't going to be like terrible out there. So he's kind of become like on a weird tier of wide receivers
I don't
where
know.
maybe we're
I
even
have bad like Julio in a Titans uniform vibes coming right now from Cooper Kupp in Seattle. I'm hoping I'm wrong.
a little bit different though, just because of the types of ways that he can still be used. Like Keenan Allen, when he did lose a step with the Chargers, they just started using him differently. It's a little
Yeah.
bit closer to the line of scrimmage. It's more short and intermediate. And like now you can maximize the things that he can still do well. And I think that we'll see that with Cooper Kupp. That's not what you're going to do with Julio Jones. Like
Yeah.
Julio Jones on the outside with all of that size advantage and stuff like that. It's like if he loses it, then it's lost. Like,
Yeah.
what do? You know, if you can't beat anybody anymore. And so I think that Cooper Kupp, based on what his strengths are, kind of he'll decline less fast, right? Like you can still find ways to put him in some positions to succeed, I
Right.
suppose.
I think with the
So
49ers, the thing with them is they have the easiest schedule in the league per FTN fantasy. Defensively, I think Robert Saleh will make them better by default. But they had a lot of turnover. Like Greg Greenlaw's no longer there. Arik Armstead left last year. Hafanga's gone as well. But they do still have Bosa and Fred Warner. And Diamador Lenore is a solid corner as well. But yeah, I think there will be a little bit of early like struggles perhaps. But I think as long as Kyle Shanahan is under the headset, as long as they can stay relatively healthy, we'll see when and where Brandon Ayuk will come back. But they are going to be banking a lot on, okay, Christian McCaffrey, please stay healthy, get us through these first few weeks while we figure out if Ricky Pearsall's good. So there's a lot of hesitation there as well, but they do have a lot working for them.
I think Christian McCaffrey coming back is just it's so massive because we've seen him come back from injury before. So there's always a risk that he will be injured again. There's also a risk in this case that he's just not as good after this particular injury with the running back every passing year. But I think he's shown obviously offensive player of the year upside, right? Like, so if he is fine, like all bets are off. It's, you know, they're back to being what they were a few years ago because he's such a game changer for that offense or any offense. Kittle is one of the best tight ends in the league, you know, obviously. I think Ayuk coming back. I think Ayuk is a very good wide receiver.
Absolutely.
And I think he's also, but also I think that there are a lot of people that are like, were surprised when he got paid what he got paid. Cause I don't know that he's one of those names that a lot of people actually know how good he is, you know?
The system that he plays in certainly hampers his production, or at least his production from a box score standpoint. But if you look at his yards per route run back in 2023, I mean, it was I think it was top in the league. So he's one of those guys where his production and value doesn't show up in a box score.
It is. And so when he comes back, I feel like that there's some time, you know, for them to kind of ramp up and maybe get Pearsall going, and Jennings, I think, is good for what they want from him. So I think the Niners could be good. I am a big believer in the Rams ecosystem. I just think that the Rams front office just hits all the time. I mean, Willie Lampkin, like, come on, like we just like let people fall to them, that they're like, it's just their ability to find people in the draft and plug them in and have success with them right out of the gate is, I mean, they're on a tier with like Howie in Philadelphia to me. I think very highly of that front office. And then the coaching staff is the same type of thing. So I think their ability to kind of navigate through whatever their weaknesses are is as high as anyone in the league. So they would be my team to take the NFC West away from the Niners. And I don't think that they're going to be out of it under any circumstance. And then the Cardinals are one of those teams that, like, a lot of the pieces are kind of underrated individually. But I also don't feel, regardless of that, I don't feel that much strength of conviction in saying like, but they're going to win more games than you guys think. I think it's still entirely likely that they come out and they do exactly what they did last year.
Was just going to say, I think they'll be right around where they were a year ago, but we shall see. Okay, so let's get to your next one. Your first one was really good. What is the next one for you?
Okay, let's see. Okay, I think this one's an interesting one.
Okay.
Again, a little bit more
Conceptual.
Would you rather, if you had to pick one to be the coach of your team this year?
Oh, good.
Liam Coen, or maybe I should make it more like you're hiring a new coach, right? Like,
Okay,
we're going to go more than 1 year out. Liam Coen or Pete Carroll?
Oh, that is a good shout because Pete's obviously old, and that's well, I mean, Pete's great, but like, you can call it like it is. I think based off of that, I think it depends on where my team is.
Yeah, it does.
I think that's a big thing. Like if you're a team that's in rebuild, like, okay, we're going to start over here. I think Liam Coen makes the most sense. If I'm a team, like I look at my roster, I'm like, if we have the right guy, we have a good 2 or 3 year stretch here where we can do it, then I would go with Pete. But not to dance around your question, if I had to pick one, I would probably go Liam Coen just because I think, hey, I'm a big fan of his already. I think what he did with Baker in Tampa Bay last year and helping him get to a career year, that's not nothing. And I'm going to pick the Jaguars to win the AFC South this year. Yeah, I know. It did. There's always at least one team that surprises us and comes out of nowhere. And I'm very bullish on Trevor Lawrence. So they'll be my babies this year, and I'll pick them to win the division. So I think Liam Coen's, we know he's a great offensive mind. We'll find out how good of a head coach he is this year. So I'll plant my flag in the Liam Coen side of things. I'm assuming you're going to go with Pete. That's a big reason.
I am going to go with Pete. And actually, originally, when you said it depends on where I am, I agreed with you. But then I'm thinking, actually, I can make the opposite argument in that, like, if you did have a team that needed to rebuild, why Pete's a good person to do that, because he is, and this is one of the things that I feel with the Raiders, like they need stability so badly. And usually teams that are in positions to rebuild, that's true for them. So if you can bring somebody in who's going to create a culture and who knows how to build a team into a winning team, because he's done that consistently. How do you message with this team? How do you create an environment where, like, we can build something from within? It will not be a shit show in Las Vegas this year. It just isn't going to be, right? Like I'm not saying they're going to win the division or they're going to win, but like he will professionalize the organization.
They're a grown-up organization.
Yes, exactly. And so in that sense, I would even make the argument that like he's a good hire maybe for either scenario, because there's pros that you could push towards him in both cases.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Pete, even though I fully understand why somebody would hire Liam. The question marks, I feel strongly that being a head coach in the NFL is an entirely different skill set than being a good offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. Like, and I don't know that that's talked about enough. Like the stuff that you actually have to do as a head coach is just different. You can still be so good at X's and O's and be a terrible head coach because you just don't have maybe solid leadership skills, or you have to stand in front of the media and maybe that's not a strength of yours. You just don't know how to do that. You don't know how to balance it all. You're not a good, like there are game management. I mean, we saw why is the name blanking right now in Denver, the Packers.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Great example of somebody who I felt badly for him in that year, because the circumstances that you're put in when you're like trying to figure out when to call a timeout. And I know everybody sits on their couch and they go, oh my God, I know that, and they're screaming at your TV, but it's kind of like, I work in broadcasting and I'm like, yeah, you also know how to talk about your team. But if I put a camera in front of your face and I turned the red light on and I want you have 30 seconds to make a point and the whole nation is watching, go, you would sound like a blubbering mess, probably.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so the things that seem easy, when you actually feel like, oh my God, the pressure's on me and I've got a bunch of different, and like from a broadcasting standpoint, also someone's talking in your ear and counting you down, and all this stuff is happening. The things that seem easy actually become much harder. And so it takes a little while sometimes to try and figure out a way to balance that all in a way that still takes advantage of the things that you're actually good at. So what we don't know about somebody like Liam Coen right now is whether or not he can do any of those things well. Have no idea. We know he was a great offensive coordinator, or at least we know he was an offensive coordinator that had some success, right? With the pieces he had that were good. So there's so many unknowns attached to that I think that pushes me towards Pete, because I know he can handle the job. And I know that, all of the other things that it might not have as much upside, and he's definitely a bridge, right? Like because of his age, like you're not building necessarily around him, but I think he's the right person to build it and then bring somebody else in eventually.
Same concept. Would you rather have Mike McDaniel or Bill Belichick?
Oh God, that's a tough one right now. Oh God, that's a tough one. Okay.
I don't know if you know my opinion on Mike McDaniel, but I'm so over his annoying shtick. So, and by the way, the Dolphins, who are getting spanked in a joint practice apparently by the Lions, they're having their own players fight each other, fighting bears during joint practice. He's saying we're one day closer to death. Hallelujah. Like, the vibes are bad in Miami. I've never been a Mike McDaniel guy. So my answer would be Belichick, just because like I don't think Mike McDaniel has that skill set to be a head coach. But then again, you got to deal with the 24-year-old when you hire Belichick, apparently. So it's a hard question.
Oh God, that really is a hard one. I'm gonna go Mike.
Okay.
Still, I feel less strongly about that than I did a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
I just think that at this point in time, Bill Belichick is not necessarily malleable enough
Mhm.
to. I don't think he is at all interested in changing or adapting.
Yeah, the game feels like it's kind of passed him by a little bit.
And not even necessarily like the game so much for me, but the leadership. Like, I think the way that he led and the way that he talks, like, even just like you can see it in his press conferences, the way he approaches everything, I just don't think that's a leadership style that works right now. And
Sure.
so, and then, I mean, gosh, like he was in charge of the draft. You gave him full control, right? He had everything there in New England and consistently made draft picks that were not necessarily like great. I mean, you bring in Mac Jones and then you put him in a position where he feels like he's walking on eggshells. And you're like, oh, dude, you have to throw some, like, I'm going to take a Pete Carroll phrase here. You got to love him up a little bit because every single one of us works better in an environment where we feel like the hook isn't waiting for us, where we're supported, where we're in an environment where the people that we're playing for or with or working with, they believe in us. Then that frees us up to take some chances. And I think that Bill operates differently. And I think it certainly worked once. I just don't think it will work again. I don't think that his leadership style is such that that I can see that working right now. And so Mike has a lot of questions. I upset a lot of Dolphins fans yesterday after the joint practice and all the reports.
3 years.
But yeah, I just don't. What also concerns me is that Tyreek is such an important part of their offense. And the fact that as soon as the season was over last year, he stood there and essentially asked to be traded. And then goes, never mind. And then goes in front of a microphone and says, I didn't understand the offense for the first few years that I was here. And then says, also on 3rd and short, I think we should get Achane off the field. And then like, you're just like, shut up. Like, what is happening here? And so
Tua going on NFL Network being like, actually, it's going to take a while for us to be good. It's like, oh my good, the vibes are not good with it. What did you say to your take Dolphins fans? I must have missed this.
It was just like, I don't necessarily, so it was after the joint practice reports where everything was bad and the vibes are bad. Like they're just getting crushed by the Lions, right? It wasn't because they got crushed in a practice, but it was more like the point that you keep making that the vibes are bad and they continue to get worse. And it's like, oh my God, can we please throw us a positive bone? Like this looks like it's just set up to fail a little bit. And so what I said was like, this looks like this is headed in a certain direction. And I wonder if they try to get ahead of it by maybe trading Tyreek and just starting like, because if you can trade him to somebody that is looking for a wide receiver, there are a lot of teams that are desperate to plug in somebody like a Tyreek, especially maybe coming off a season like last year where you're like, maybe we can get him at a little bit of a discount because there's some questions that we have about him. Also, obviously all of the off the field, like that there's always off the field stuff with Tyreek is something that you have to be willing to take on that maybe drives the price down just a teeny bit. If you're somebody that specifically needs one wide receiver to like put us over the top, I think there are teams that maybe could go do that. And I'm just not sure it's going to work with the Dolphins. Like, I don't know that it's a fit anymore. And so for all of those reasons, I'm like, maybe if you make a trade now, you can get ahead of not a rebuild necessarily, but like a just tweak to the offense, where you can get something and then work towards something as opposed to like, around the trade deadline being like, okay, we're out, like, pass,
And that would
passing
take his
pieces
value
around.
even more because you're sitting there, 2-6 or whatever. You're not going to get too much in return for Hill at that point. Whereas you do it now, like he's still got some value, even though, things have happened in the last few months that might have dropped it down. So yeah, they're a weird team.
We have at Sumer some tracking data derived metrics that assign like percentiles to them, right? And the thing that I think is really cool about this is that the model does not know who each wide receiver is. So it's not like Tyreek's getting no bump for being Tyreek. Whereas if you were a human grader or somebody like that, you might like just look at him differently. Like you have subjectivity that's built into this. So I think what's cool about our model is that it's completely objective. And so this is all to say that last year as a route runner, our Sumer score for him as a route runner was in the 55th percentile of wide receivers. Now, every number, I'll always say this next, is that every number needs context, right? Like there are stories that go within, and so there are questions that need to be asked about, like, why? Is it because he's lost a step? He's 31 years old and we're starting to see the decline. Is it because, and again, this is a route running score. This isn't his receiving score, which also came down very much from last year. But like, I'm willing to say like the offense came down. So like, what can you do? But if it's specifically judging how you're running routes and getting separation and doing all of that kind of stuff, and that's plummeting, then I think it's worth asking some questions. Now, our tracking data said he was still very fast, one of the fastest wide receivers in the league. So then I'm like, okay, was it our offense sucks? And now I'm kind of like just not going full speed anymore because I don't think it's going anywhere. Am I like loafing on some plays and then I'm getting some, and that wouldn't necessarily hurt me if we were good moving forward? Is it, there's just a bunch of questions, but I think the fact that there are questions is what makes this interesting. We don't know that the answer is with 100% certainty Tyreek is the old Tyreek this year.
Right.
Don't know that. And so there's some like the whole thing there just feels like I liked the way that Mike built it originally. Go get speed. And then that maximizes what Tua does well, which is gets the ball out so fast. Lowest time to throw in the NFL. This is a consistent pattern of his. Gets the ball out, get it to the guy who has speed, who has the matchup advantage. Our offense will tell you who that is at all times. Because if you're getting the ball out that fast, it's what you intended to do. Or you're reading the defense, you know exactly where to go. But we're not asking you, last year anyway, to get the ball downfield. We're just asking you to get it to the fast guy that has an advantage in this situation. Last year, they didn't have as much advantage in those situations. So I don't know. The Dolphins are a fascinating one for me. I have so many questions about them.
I do too. Let's go to the NFC North for this next one. Quarterback to have the most wins this year in the NFC North: Caleb Williams or JJ McCarthy? The Vikings are another one of those where it's just like, I believe in Kevin O'Connell. I'll say, I'll play devil's advocate. I'm going to say Caleb, but I'm going to tell you why I'm going to say Caleb. And it has a lot to do with this point that I'm going to make. I think over the next couple years, there's going to be a lot of Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo comparisons made with Kevin O'Connell and JJ McCarthy, where it's been made very evident that Kevin O'Connell naturally elevates the quarterback play, as well as the weapons that the Vikings have in place, very similar to what the 49ers did when Garoppolo was there. When you have a very good head coach, very good play caller, play designer, two very good weapons, Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, naturally, if you have a competent quarterback, I think their floor and ceiling will go up. I think we're going to see that with JJ McCarthy. I don't think he's going to be a god-awful quarterback. I wasn't huge on him coming out of Michigan, but I do think naturally he is going to play above his means because of the situation that he is in. I can say the same thing right now for Caleb, though. Getting Ben Johnson after the rookie year that he had, like statistically, pretty good. It didn't really get talked about because Jane Daniels did so good. And the Bears were just a tire fire coaching wise. Like all the stuff coming out of Chicago was like, oh, Caleb asked Shane Waldron to watch film and he told him to go fuck himself. I was like, all right, well, let's maybe hear the other side of that story at some point. But I do think he's in a better situation. And I think naturally that will elevate him as well. I like what the Bears have a little bit defensively too. And I just don't think that there's going to be some natural regression with the Vikings. They're not going to win 14 games again. I would be very shocked if that happens. And I just don't know what McCarthy's going to be. So I think naturally I would put them kind of in that like 7-9 win territory. I'd probably put both of them in that territory, but I would believe in Chicago a little bit more because I at least know Caleb can play.
Yeah, I think Caleb can play. Like, and that's really my big hang up is that I think, I mean, I am a big proponent, and the points that you made suggest that you are also, that environment matters so much for quarterback, right? Like, that's why I had been, prior to, not to pat myself on the back, but I'm going to do it every year for Sam Darnold. Every year I was like, we don't know that he sucks yet. Like, we don't know that. Like, he has sucked statistically, but we don't know that he can't be a good enough quarterback in a good environment because he's never been in a good environment. So the fact that he was able to step into the Vikings ecosystem and have success until he didn't at the end of the year, sort of helps prove that point. Environment matters so much. And so that's to say that I do think that in some ways Caleb was in a bad environment last year. I really wish that they had made the change, the regime change that they made this offseason the year before. I think if you're drafting a quarterback number 1, you got to cut bait and just start over and let them build together. And I think a lot of the reports that we've heard about, like you're saying about the tape watching and not really getting his hand held as much as you would hope somebody would hold the hand of a number 1 overall quarterback that your career is linked to now. Like, I would want to hear more things that would suggest that you were setting him up to succeed above all else. And I didn't hear that. So I think he was in a bad situation last year. But I also think he did not play well in some of the ways that, as a USC fan, I was very convinced that he was such a level of talent that, like, it's hard to even suggest that somebody could be on a Patrick Mahomes style. He's that style of quarterback, right? So I thought he would be able to overcome even if things were bad. And just get the ball out and all of the different arm angles and the ways that he kind of makes these flashy plays. I thought he'd be better last year. I think this year, if he understands his time in the pocket a little bit better and maybe gets better at some processing decisions, I think those are the 2 things that I'm looking for from him, because he actually had, for all of the talk about his offensive line last year, the 9th longest time to pressure in the entire.
A lot of those sacks were on him.
They were on him. That's the point I'm trying to make. So you can go and you can make the offensive line better, but he's got to get better because he still actually had a ton of time last year and he just wasn't able to maximize that. So my assumption is that he's working on that this offseason, that they're working on getting that clock in his head to be more where they want it to be. Fingers crossed, that's what they're doing this offseason. So I think he could be much better. This is a very long-winded way of saying, I am, in terms of like betting or creating fantasy picks or anything like that, in the orange where I have to pick one and I'm attached to it now, I'm very risk averse. And so my risk aversion in this case would lean towards JJ McCarthy because of the ecosystem being good in ways that we know. They made some offensive line changes this year too, because I do think that, there was some stuff there that maybe needed to be better, and we'll find out if it is better. But I think that that even in a quarterback who is average, let's say JJ McCarthy turns out to be average and not terrible, I think that guy can have success in that type of situation that they've created in Minnesota. So I'm gonna put my money there.
No, that's fair. I would agree with that. In terms of the reasoning, at least going risk averse. All right. Do you have one more before we get on out of here?
Okay, this one is okay. We did that one because you stole it from me. We did that one. Okay. This one is going to the Steelers fan. This one's gonna like just speak to how you specifically as a fan. I'm not really gonna weigh in. If one had to win the Super Bowl this year and one was going to win the Super Bowl this year, Bengals or Ravens?
Oh, Bengals. Yeah.
Why?
You
don't care?
Yeah, the Bengals haven't hurt me. Growing up a Steelers fan, like the Bengals were never like, I was never like, oh, I hate the Bengals, except for like the Vontaze Burfict thing. Like that was a very brief stretch. Was like, all right, I hate the Bengals, but like Joe Burrow's cool, Jamar Chase is cool. Yeah, being a Steelers fan, like you hate the Ravens more than you hate terrorism. Like you, like I would rather see the Chiefs win the next 10 Super Bowls and see Baltimore win one. I don't want I don't want Ravens fans to ever have anything nice ever. So yeah, easy choice. Yeah.
All right. That one you weren't that's good. I guess
Zero hesitation. Yeah. All right. Well, since that one was so quick, let's
for the Bengals in that situation. They're like in the AFC Championship game, you are actively rooting for the Bengals, or you're tapping out and you're like, I can't.
If it's Bengals Ravens in the AFC title game, yeah, I'm actively rooting for the Bengals. Yeah.
All right. That wouldn't feel weird.
And I would probably guess most Steelers fans would say that same thing.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but especially ones that are my age where I haven't, like I said, the Bengals haven't like broke my heart in a playoff game or anything like that. They've had a few playoff games against the Steelers, but the Steelers have always won them. So yeah, I've got like even growing up, like I love Chad Johnson. I love TJ Houshmandzadeh. Like I've never had a bad thing to say about the Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's
it would give them a Super Bowl.
That's fine. I don't care.
We're on your level. Does that elevate the rivalry to
No, I don't care so much about that either. I'm not one who like flexes 6 Super Bowls because I was only alive for 2 of them, you know. So I don't get too much into like the historical arguments too much. I'm very much a what's happened recently in terms of my fandom. So that wouldn't really bother me at all. Like when I remember when the 49ers and Ravens were playing in the Super Bowl, some people were like, well, I don't want the 49ers to have 6. I'm like, yeah, but the Ravens are on the other side. I don't want them to have any, you know? So it's, I don't care too much about that aspect.
Is there any chance that if they were to win a Super Bowl, that then now it becomes Bengals, Ravens consistently every year, narratively, like these are the 2 teams, and then that shuts you out in a way that hurts your heart?
I don't think so, because like until the Steelers do get back there and become that team that's consistently playing deep into January, like
happen anyway.
they're going to wear that narrative, and rightfully so. I yearn for those days again because I miss being a fan of a team where I know like every year, all right, they have a shot.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was very spoiled when it came to that for almost 2 decades because as long as 7 was under center, you knew, all right, there's a chance that they could win. So they haven't had that in a little bit. I look forward to when they do have that again. Now there has become, I felt the same way about the Chiefs at the beginning where I was like, all right, something fun, something new. When it becomes prolonged, then yeah, if the Bengals went on a Chiefs-esque run, I would probably grow to hate them because it's just natural. But yeah, but I would actively root for the Bengals if there was a Bengals-Ravens AFC title game. And zero hesitation when it comes to that. Zero.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do this one real quick because that one was kind of quick. Another quarterback wins. Which former NFC North quarterback will get more wins? Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers.
I feel a little bit like, your fan base is a specific fan base, probably not necessarily on this show, but you know what I mean? Like, I just I don't want to upset a whole bunch of people here.
No, this is, I do 2 for the network. This is very much my national one. I think all the Believe in Steelers folks might, follow me over here, but I think you're safe.
Okay. I'm going to go Sam.
Oh my goodness. I didn't think you were going to say Sam, but
you didn't think so?
No, I'm not a Sam. I don't hate Sam Darnold by any means. I'm just not a Sam Darnold believer. And I think what, you pointed out earlier, once he got into the right environment, I don't think Seattle's the right environment. I think that, remember last year for about 2 weeks when Clint Kubiak was the greatest thing to ever hit the earth when the Saints put up 40 points in the first 2 weeks of the year? Like that was cool, but offensively, I just don't really know what's there. When they traded away DK Metcalf and Geno, I was like, all right, you're going to hit rebuild, reset. That's fine. Good job realizing that's what you should probably do. But then they signed Sam without a legit number 1 outside receiver. And then they signed Cooper Kupp, who's predominantly a slot receiver, when they already have JSN, who's predominantly a slot receiver. I just don't know what the proof of concept here is for the Seahawks. So I think their defense is going to be pretty good. Offensively, though, I have so many questions.
Yeah, I have questions about the offense as well. Very much like Mike McDonald and what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball for sure, right? So I think all the offensive question marks are fair, and I have been very like, what are you doing with the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason? Like,
really?
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's my bias coming out, but
are you like, yes, got that guy and got that guy? Is that how you like? Am I really that far off? Like DK getting $33 million a year.
That was a lot. But my pushback to all of that is they don't have to pay a quarterback for at least 5 years. So they have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to, okay, we're going to overpay him a little bit, but we can. So I'm like, DK's an upgrade over Pickens in my opinion. You don't think so?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Let's have this argument then. Go
Disagree. I just don't. I think that DK he's a guy who, what is he very good at? Let me ask you that.
A lot of the similar things that George Pickens is good at, where it's he's not a refined route runner. He doesn't have like a deep route tree. His biggest strengths are he'll go get you a rebound in the deep ball passing game. And if you get on the ball short, he can shut off a tackle and get you some extra yardage. He's not going to be, that definitive X guy who has a deep route tree and whatnot. We agree on that.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I really wish I did because I want to push to them. Here's what I'll do. I'll say, everyone watching, go look at the Reception Perception website that Matt Harmon runs. It's one of my favorite wide receiver analysis tools. He does such a good job charting every single wide receiver in the league, or at least like the ones, that you want to know about, and their entire route tree, watches games, tells you what they're good at, success rates versus all of these different situations. One of the things that he found, that we also found at Sumer with our tracking data metrics, is that he is not necessarily as good at the catch point as everybody gives him credit for. Like, the narrative is that he's a good contested catch guy, but I don't know that he actually is. And so then there becomes because to your point, he's not necessarily the best route runner, like the most refined route runner. And yards after the catch are not particularly high. It kind of becomes like, what is it? Like, how is he winning in a way that I can consistently predict and put my finger on and go, that's it. And so for him to be a wide receiver one that we're building around and paying him in this manner, to your point, yes, like if you have some financial room, okay, if you can afford to just throw away some money, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't necessarily, like, he's as far as wide receiver ones go, he's on the lower end of wide receiver ones for me. And then Aaron is such an interesting guy because I just think he was not good last year. And it's hard to really wrap your brain around like why or how. But he doesn't look the same as he did before. And so I don't know if that's physical. I don't know what it is, but he consistently was inefficient in New York, right? Like, he had the 8th most passing yards, and people like say that all the time. And I'm like, how many attempts he had? The 2nd most. Where he ranked in terms of yards per attempt? Bottom third of the league. Where he ranked in terms of expected points added per play? At the bottom. Like, I mean, every efficiency stat that you can go look up for him last year, it's like down at the bottom. And then again, kind of going back to the Bill Belichick point, like, they let him run the show.
I think that's my big thing with him coming to Pittsburgh, is the infrastructure in place is so much more so than what it was with the Jets. And I think he is a guy that needs good infrastructure. And I think that will be a big boost.
Someone to say like, I just don't know if I even see that. Like, I know that Tomlin of all coaches will probably have the gravitas to say like, we're going to do what I said.
Yeah.
But I just also am not sure if that works. I don't know how Aaron of all people works in that environment. And is Aaron going to continue to go on? And this is a secondary thing, but is he going to go on Pat McAfee every single week? Is he going to create this other thing that's always going around with him?
Let me feed you my copium real quick as a Steelers fan who really wants this to work.
Yeah, okay, bring it.
I would like to think. Hey, well, I also subscribe to the very rare camp where I'm like, I don't mind Aaron. Like, I don't hate Aaron. Everybody seems to hate Aaron and whatnot. Does he have some weird thoughts and opinions? And can he be hypocritical? Sure. We all can. So I'm not gonna, throw stones when I live in a glass house. In terms of what he went through the last 2 years, if I was in his shoes, and that's, the only way I could view this, I would maybe take a step back and say, maybe there's something that I need to do better. And maybe I should be a little bit more coachable. Maybe I should be a little bit less of a prick sometimes. Maybe I should, just learn from these things and try to be better, knowing that this is probably my last run, and just try to make the absolute most of it as I possibly can. I would like to think that's where his head is at. And if it is, I think it could work, mostly because I've seen, for all the qualms I have with Mike Tomlin, in terms of, I think that his style of winning games that matter doesn't work anymore either. I do know that he'll get them to probably 9 or 10 wins. If he did it with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph with a lesser roster 2 years ago, there's no reason for me to think at least that they won't be at least a 9-10 win team this year.
I think because of the first half of the things that you said, I think that is what a logical person would expect somebody to go into this situation thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the case last year.
Sure.
And at no point did he provide any evidence that that's how he sees the situation. And having watched the documentary on Netflix, or I don't even know.
Oh, I haven't watched that. And
do.
I think I kind of want to refuse to.
No, but see, I mean, I think in order to have this conversation, and people will watch it and come away with different perspectives.
Okay.
Mine was, I loved Aaron Rodgers, the player in Green Bay in early years. Like, if you were like, hey, who are some of your favorite quarterbacks in the league? Aaron Rodgers is one that I'm banging the table for. Like, I mean, I'm not breaking any news, right? We all felt that way about Aaron Rodgers. I think in recent years, the thing that is pushing me away is a lack of self-awareness that seems to be intact for him. Like, and you're saying with some of the incongruities with the things that he's saying and then the things that he's doing, like, I think that there is some fallout from that from a leadership standpoint. And watching the Netflix thing, there were points of the documentary where I was trying very hard to have an open mind, and to give him credit where credit is due. And there were parts where I was like, this part was very likable. I live tweeted it. If you want to actually go check, you can.
Okay. Maybe I'll just find your live tweets of it, right? And see if they, kind of link it up to the show and whatnot.
But there's a lot of self-awareness lacking, in my opinion. And then so to the point that you're saying, like, okay, this is the environment. People are saying this about me. Maybe I need to reevaluate. Maybe I need to come at this a little bit differently. Maybe I should step back. Maybe I should do this. I just don't see any evidence in the last couple of years that he is someone who is thinking in that way at all. I don't think it at all. I think there's a lot of defensiveness and a lot of like, I have been wronged and those people are silly, in almost a condescending way.
Gotcha.
Like, it's like the media is out to get me and them, like that kind of thing. And so I think I want very much for the things that you're saying to be right. I would love for Aaron Rodgers to look like Aaron Rodgers. I would love for this to work for the Steelers. I haven't seen evidence that the things that I think are necessary for that to happen, I haven't seen any signs that that's the page that he's on.
Over under 8.5 wins for the Steelers this year.
Well, that's actually with the Sam Darnold and the wins thing, probably, because I want to bet over on Tomlin. I want to bet over on environment. I just didn't like their offseason. So if that's where we're starting.
Oh yeah, I forgot we were on opposite poles of that. So yeah, tell me your thoughts on everything when it comes to. We already touched on DK, but the other moves they made.
Well, I mean, I think Aaron's a big part of it.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
Like, so in terms of where they went with the quarterback, where they then went with like the pieces, he last year, I think you guys had 3 of the top 5, like in terms of deep ball rate or something like that. Like, the Steelers have all this, like all of these guys that go long. And that's DK's deep ball rate was very high as well. I just don't know. I don't know what it is gonna look like. Like, what's the strength of the team? What are we gonna do that is like, what can I count on them to do consistently well in the division? In terms of matchups, like, how are we going to have an advantage? What's the advantage? In terms of the backfield, Caleb Johnson is so early, right? But like, I was actually like kind of excited, like in terms of rookie running backs, again, fantasy, like going like, I'll check that box there. Like, I think he's going to have an opportunity to split that backfield, maybe step into the Najee role. I don't know. Is he?
I mean, from what I saw from him at camp, he had a play every day that I was there where I was like, okay, there's something there. I think everybody's freaking out after the Jacksonville game because like there was a screenshot of an all 22 that went viral. There's a big lane. He didn't go through it. I
Right.
can understand the
It's early, dude. It's
very early. That's my thing. Like seeing him at camp, there was a play during padded practice almost every day where he's like, all right, there's something there with Caleb. And I think that it'll start off with Jalen Warren getting, 70-30 when it comes to the spread of the touches. I think as the season goes on, that number will get slowly closer to 50-50.
Okay.
I think.
hope.
I think what Art wants to do is just turn them into the 2019 Titans. Run the ball, play action, 2nd and 2. If you squint, DK kind of looks like AJ Brown, and that I think that's kind of what's in his head right now. Is play action, some stuff
How many
over the
tight
middle.
ends can we get on the field at once?
Can I run like 0-5 personnel somehow?
Right.
In terms of how many Jonnu Smith targets am I going to draw up? Well, there's a lot of apprehension that I have with it, but
Yeah.
you look at what he did last year. I'll give Art credit where it's due. There's a few games where he was in his bag. The second Baltimore game in the regular season, if not for an ill-timed Russell Wilson fumble and a god-awful Russell Wilson pick 6, they probably, like, at minimum, it's a 1-score game. They could win that game as well. So Art, I'll give Art his credit. I don't think he's a top, 5 offensive coordinator, but I would put him at least the upper half, despite all of the, tight end, Jonnu Smith, Binky stuff. Like, I get it, but I think Art is a net good.
I think we're gonna find out this year.
Yeah.
What the answer to that is, because I think if you look at quarterbacks, and if people were like ranking quarterbacks right now, I think you have a bottom half of the league for sure.
Oh, see, I put Aaron, and we're gonna disagree very much on this, and it might have to do with him being Aaron, but I think when I do my quarterback rankings, I put him 16.
So middle of the league?
Right smack dab in the
Is
middle.
the
Yep.
hair we're splitting? Okay. All right. I probably put him lower than that. If I were to actually rank them out, of people that I would want under center, but I certainly understand why you would put him there.
Right.
But I guess the point is, like, so is 16, and is that an advantage Steelers in most situations? Maybe not.
If
Um,
everything defensively goes well, which they were 8th last year in defensive DVOA, I think they can be a little bit better. And if they can just get slightly better quarterback play than what they got down the stretch from Russell Wilson, then yeah, I think that they'll be a team that can win 10 games again. If they can get that elusive 11th win, then maybe face a team in the playoffs with, a better matchup rather than having to go to Arrowhead or Buffalo and probably not have much of a shot. So that's really what I'm hoping for, is can they get the 11th win, or can they get that 5 spot in the wild card, or God willing, win the AFC North? Wouldn't that be lovely for me?
yeah, I
Something tells me you're not going to bet on that one to happen.
I'm not going to bet on it.
That's okay.
I'm not going to bet on it.
It's okay. You don't have to. Lindsay Rhodes, this is so much fun. I'm glad that when I texted you, I was like, yeah, we'll do like half hour, 40 minutes. It's been like an hour, 15. So thank you so much for all your time today. Plug away everything that you're doing at Sumer Sports.
So I do a podcast every week called the Sumer Sports Show. Comes out on Wednesdays. It's kind of like data analytic sort of stuff, but then also we're trying to bring in like all the different perspectives that we have at Sumer. We've got a lot of former general managers and scouts and stuff like that, and then also a whole data science team also. So we're kind of like coming at conversations, putting all of the different perspectives into one conversation. We have a new product that's coming out soon that is called Sumer Brain, that is an AI chatbot. I know you're like, oh my God, these are everywhere, blah, and also AI, and that's I get it. But in terms of like making fantasy decisions or doing deep dives on things like this, we're training it to speak football specifically.
That's
and
exciting.
in all of the high level ways. So that if you were like, is this guy better than this guy, or where does this guy rank, or who are the best, then we want it to actually look at the things that from a data standpoint actually matter and are sticky and are predictive. And so we're in the process of training it to be able to tell you some things as the reasons behind the answers that are things you would have a hard time finding elsewhere. And also might, for somebody like you who does a lot of research and preparing for your podcasts, would consolidate a lot of that research so that you don't have to go to like 8 different websites because they have all the different stats and things. And so that's coming out soon. So look out for that.
Sounds incredibly useful, and I look forward to using it. Everybody watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review, do all that fun podcast stuff. Lindsay, you are the absolute best. Anytime we get to see each other, during the whether it's Senior Bowl Combine, I always love seeing you and talking to you. Thank you so much for a little bit of time today. You're the best.
Thank you for having me. Let's check back again. I hope I'm wrong about the Steelers. You can hold it over my head.
You and I both. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back either later this week or following week to recap week 2 of the preseason. Till then, it's a bump pick.